You hired humans to fight the Zorgons? Commander Jackson, have you completely lost your mind? General Vortex slammed his fist on the table, his red eyes blazing with fury as he glared at the Orion diplomat. Jackson met the general's gaze unflinchingly. He knew the risks, but he also knew that the Orions were out of options. The Zorgons had pushed them to the brink of defeat, and if they gained control of the wormhole network, it would spell disaster not just for the Orions, but for the entire galaxy. I understand your concerns, General, Jackson said calmly, but we have no choice. Our forces are no match for the Zorgons' ruthless tactics and advanced weaponry. We need the humans' expertise in asymmetric warfare and their willingness to do whatever it takes to win. He paused, letting his words sink in. If we don't stop the Zorgons here and now, they will use the wormholes to launch attacks on every major star system, including those controlled by humans. This is not just our fight anymore. The general scoffed. And you think a band of human mercenaries can turn the tide? They're nothing more than savages with guns. They'll be a liability on the battlefield. Jackson shook his head. You underestimate them, General. The human mercenary commander, Louis Young, has a reputation for pulling off the impossible. His team has never failed a mission, no matter the odds. He leaned forward, his voice low and intense. The Galactic Council may not approve, but we have no other choice. We must put our faith in the humans, or risk losing everything we hold dear. As Jackson spoke, light years away, Louis Young was assembling his team of elite mercenaries. Each one had been handpicked for their unique skills and their ability to thrive in the chaos of battle. There was Sergeant Hawkins, a master of close-quarters combat, who had single-handedly taken down an entire platoon of Kralath warriors. Lieutenant Chen, a brilliant tactician who could outmaneuver any enemy commander. And then there was Corporal Valdez, a sniper with a near-supernatural ability to hit any target, no matter the distance or conditions. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with. But even Louis knew that this mission would be their greatest challenge yet. As news of the Orion's decision to hire human mercenaries spread through the galactic community, the reactions were swift and fierce. Many saw it as a sign of desperation, a last-ditch effort by a failing empire. Others saw it as a dangerous gamble, one that could destabilize the already tenuous balance of power in the galaxy. The Galactic Council, a governing body made up of the most advanced alien civilizations, issued a stern warning to the Orions. They would be held responsible for any collateral damage caused by the human mercenaries, and any violations of galactic law would be met with swift and severe punishment. But Jackson was undeterred. He knew that the stakes were too high to back down now. The fate of the Orion people, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on the shoulders of Louis Young and his team. As the human mercenaries arrived on the front lines of the conflict, they were met with a wall of hostility and skepticism from the Orion military leaders. Many saw them as little more than cannon fodder, expendable assets to be thrown into the meat grinder of war. But Louis was determined to prove them wrong. He knew that his team had the skills and the determination to turn the tide of the war, and he was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. As they began to assess the situation and develop a plan of attack, Louis couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this conflict than met the eye. Something didn't add up about the Zorgons' sudden surge in power and their relentless aggression. And then they uncovered the truth. The Zorgons had been receiving covert support from a faction within the Orion government itself. The very people who had hired Louis and his team to fight their war had been working with the enemy all along. The revelation sent shockwaves through the ranks of the Orion military and the human mercenaries alike. Suddenly, the lines between friend and foe were blurred, and trust was a luxury they could no longer afford. With tensions rising and time running out, Louis knew that he would have to navigate a treacherous web of politics and betrayal to uncover the full extent of the conspiracy and bring the true enemy to justice. But one thing was certain. The human mercenaries would not rest until they had proven their worth and shown the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. For in the end, it was not just the fate of the Orions that hung in the balance, but the future of all mankind. As the human mercenaries integrated into the Orion military ranks, their combat prowess quickly became apparent. The Zorgons launched a surprise attack on a critical Orion outpost, hoping to catch the defenders off guard and secure a strategic foothold. Lewis and his team were among the first to respond. Sergeant Hawkins led the charge, his pulse rifle blazing as he mowed down wave after wave of Zorgon soldiers. Lieutenant Chen coordinated the defense, anticipating the enemy's every move and adjusting their tactics accordingly. Corporal Valdez picked off Zorgon snipers with uncanny precision, his shots ringing out across the battlefield. Lewis himself was a force to be reckoned with, his leadership and tactical brilliance inspiring the Orion soldiers to fight with renewed vigor. The outpost was saved, and the Zorgons were forced to retreat. The Orions began to see the humans in a new light, their respect for the mercenaries growing with each passing day. However, not everyone was pleased with the humans' success. General Zeph, a high-ranking Orion officer, made his disdain for the mercenaries known. He openly questioned Louis's loyalties and challenged his every decision. "You may have bought yourself some goodwill with this victory," Zeph sneered, "but don't forget your place, human. You're nothing more than hired guns, and I'll be watching your every move." Louis brushed off Zeph's threats, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the general was hiding something. He began to suspect that Zeph might be involved in the conspiracy to aid the Zorgons, but without concrete evidence, he knew he had to tread carefully. Determined to uncover the truth, Louis proposed a risky mission deep into Zorgon territory. The goal was to capture a high-ranking Zorgon commander who might have knowledge of the Orion traitors. Jackson was hesitant to approve the mission, but Lewis's arguments were persuasive. Zeph, on the other hand, was vehemently opposed to the idea. "You're putting too much faith in these humans, Jackson," Zeph argued. "They'll only lead us to ruin. This mission is too dangerous, and we can't trust them with such sensitive information." Despite Zeph's objections, Louis and his team set out to infiltrate the Zorgon base. They moved silently through the enemy compound, their years of training and experience guiding their every step. They located the Zorgon commander and managed to subdue him, but as they made their escape, all hell broke loose. A massive force of Zorgon soldiers ambushed them, firing from every direction. The human mercenaries fought like demons, their weapons cutting through the Zorgon ranks. Hawkins engaged in brutal hand-to-hand combat, while Chen and Valdez provided covering fire. But the odds were stacked against them. The Zorgons just kept coming, and the humans found themselves surrounded and outgunned. Lewis knew that if they didn't get reinforcements soon, they'd be overwhelmed. Just when all seemed lost, a fleet of Orion warships dropped out of hyperspace. Leading the charge was Jackson himself, his ship raining down fire on the Zorgon forces. With the Orion's help, Louis and his team managed to escape with the captured commander. But as they made their way back to the extraction point, Louis noticed something strange. Zeph's ship was breaking formation, fleeing the battlefield. Louis's suspicions about Zeph's involvement in the conspiracy grew stronger. Back at the Orion base, he interrogated the Zorgon commander, who confirmed his worst fears. "Zeph is one of the traitors," the commander spat. "He and his cohorts have been supplying us with weapons and intel. They think they'll get a cut of the profits once we control the wormhole network." Lewis wasted no time in bringing this information to Jackson. He demanded that Zeph be arrested for treason, but Jackson hesitated. The evidence was damning, but Zeph was a respected member of the Orion military, and Jackson wasn't sure he could trust the word of a Zorgon prisoner. As news of the human success and the revelation of Orion traitors spread throughout the galaxy, the debate over humanity's role in galactic affairs reached a boiling point. Some saw the humans as saviors, while others viewed them as dangerous interlopers. Lewis and his team found themselves at the center of a brewing galactic storm. They knew that the fate of the Orions and humanity itself hung in the balance. To unravel the conspiracy and defeat the Zorgons, they would need to navigate a treacherous web of politics and betrayal. But one thing was certain. The human mercenaries would not rest until they had proven their worth to the galaxy. They would fight to their last breath to protect the Orions and secure humanity's place among the stars. The Galactic Council chambers erupted into chaos. Delegates from across the galaxy shouted over each other, their voices rising in a cacophony of anger and fear. "We must intervene immediately," thundered the Motolor representative, his massive form looming over the others. "The Orion corruption threatens us all." "And risk war with the humans?" countered the Flow delegate, her spindly limbs quivering with agitation. "Their mercenaries have already proven far more dangerous than we anticipated." As the debate raged on, Louis Young's communication device buzzed urgently. He swiped the screen, revealing Jackson's face, contorted with fear and desperation. "Louis, I don't have much time," Jackson whispered, his eyes darting back and forth. "Zeph's men have me. They're holding me at Outpost Sigma-9. Without me, your contract—" The transmission cut off abruptly. Louis clenched his fists, mind racing. Without Jackson's authority, his team was in danger. He turned to his squad, perseverance etched on his face. "Gear up," he ordered. "We're going to get Jackson back." Hours later, their transport ship approached Outpost Sigma-9, a fortified station clinging to a desolate asteroid. In the cargo hold, a captured Zorgon snarled and thrashed against its restraints. "Remember," Louis briefed his team, "we're posing as a prisoner transfer. Once we're inside, we move fast and hit hard." The outpost's hangar bay doors yawned open, admitting their ship. As they touched down, Louis nodded to Sergeant Hawkins. "Showtime." They marched out, Hawkins roughly shoving their Zorgon prisoner forward. An Orion officer approached, datapad in hand. "We weren't expecting a transfer," he said, frowning. "Last-minute orders," Louis replied smoothly, "straight from General Zeph himself." The officer hesitated, then nodded. "Very well, follow me." They were led deeper into the outpost. Louis's eyes scanned every corridor, every doorway, mapping out their route. As they rounded a corner, he caught a glimpse of Jackson being escorted by armed guards. Louis locked eyes with Hawkins. In one fluid motion, the sergeant whirled and struck the Orion officer, dropping him before he could cry out. The rest of the team sprang into action, weapons materializing in their hands. Alarms blared as they fought their way through the outpost. Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over their comms, coordinating their movements with precision. "Hostiles approaching from the east corridor." Corporal Valdez took up position at an intersection, her rifle barking as she picked off Zeph's loyalists with surgical precision. Louis and Hawkins pushed forward, cutting through the enemy ranks. Suddenly, Louis spotted Zeph dragging Jackson towards a secured hangar. "There!" he shouted, breaking into a sprint. Zeph turned, his eyes widening in shock. He shoved Jackson aside and drew his weapon, firing wildly at Louis. The human mercenary dove and rolled, coming up with his own gun blazing. The two clashed in a furious hand-to-hand struggle. Zeph was stronger, but Louis was quicker, dodging the Orion's powerful blows and landing stinging counters. "You've lost, Zeph," Louis growled, ducking under a wild swing. "It's over." Before Zeph could respond, the station rocked with a massive explosion. Through the viewport, Louis saw a Zorgon battle fleet descending on the outpost. "Damn it," Louis cursed. He knocked Zeph back with a savage headbutt and raced to Jackson's side, helping the Orion diplomat to his feet. "We need to get out of here," Jackson gasped, clutching his side. "But how?" Louis's eyes fell on the sleek Orion warship docked in the hangar. "That's our ticket out of here. Can you fly it?" Jackson nodded weakly. "I think so." They fought their way to the ship, joined by the rest of Louis's team and a group of Orion rebels who had seized the opportunity to defect. As they reached the hangar, Zorgon dropships began disgorging troops into the outpost. "Get to the ship!" Louis shouted, laying down covering fire as his team and the rebels scrambled aboard. Inside the flagship's bridge, Jackson's hands flew over the controls. The ship hummed to life, its weapon systems coming online. "Hang on!" Jackson yelled as he punched the throttle. The warship lurched forward, smashing through the hangar's energy barrier and into open space. Zorgon fighters swarmed around them, energy beams lancing out and scoring hits against their hull. The ship shuddered under the assault. "Return fire!" Lewis ordered. The Orion warship's guns roared to life, blasting Zorgon ships out of the sky. Jackson gritted his teeth, pushing the engines to their limit. "We're almost clear of their firing range." With a final burst of speed, they broke through the Zorgon blockade, streaking away into the depths of space. As the adrenaline of their escape faded, Lewis turned to Jackson, his expression grim. "We've got a stolen warship, a ragtag crew, and the entire galaxy gunning for us," he said. "What's our next move?" Jackson's eyes hardened with dedication. "We rally the Orion rebels. We expose Zeph's treachery, and we end this war once and for all." Little did they know, far across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was mobilizing its fleet, preparing to intervene in a conflict that threatened to engulf them all. The stolen Orion warship hurtled through the void, its engines pulsing with barely contained energy. On the bridge, Lewis and Jackson huddled with the remaining Orion rebels, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. "We need a plan," Jackson said, his voice tight with tension. "Zeph will be hunting us across every sector." Before Louis could respond, a harsh beep cut through the air. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across the comms panel. "Incoming transmission," she reported. "It's the Galactic Council fleet." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern visage of Admiral Tarvok. His eyes, cold as steel, bored into them. "This is Admiral Tarvok of the Galactic Council. You are hereby ordered to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Louis stepped forward, his expression resolute. "We need options, people. Now." Sergeant Hawkins growled. "I say we fight. We've come too far to give up now." "And get blown to atoms," Corporal Valdez countered. "We're outnumbered and outgunned." Lewis raised a hand, silencing the debate. "I have an idea. It's risky, but it might be our only shot." He outlined his plan to rally support from other alien races, to form a coalition against Zeph and the Zorgons. Jackson's eyes widened. "That's insane. The Council will never allow it." "They won't have a choice," Louis said, his voice firm. "Not once they see the truth." With a nod from Jackson, they sprang into action. Chen's fingers flew over the controls, bypassing security protocols and tapping into the warship's powerful communications array. Lewis stepped up to the broadcast station, taking a deep breath. "People of the galaxy," he began, his voice ringing out across countless worlds. "I am Lewis Young. What I'm about to tell you will shake the foundations of everything you believe." He laid out the evidence of Zeph's betrayal, the Zorgon threat, the corruption that ran deep through the Orion government. As he spoke, data streams and classified documents flashed across millions of screens. "We call upon all those who value freedom, who stand against tyranny, to join us," Louis concluded. "The hope of the universe hangs in the balance." For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly at first, then with gathering speed, responses began to flood in. Alien mercenaries, freedom fighters, and dissidents from 100 worlds pledged their support. But there was no time to celebrate. Alarms blared throughout the ship. "Multiple contacts," Chen shouted. "Orion loyalist forces and Zorgon battlecruisers." Lewis's eyes narrowed. "Zeph's making his move. All hands to battle stations." The space around them erupted into chaos. Energy beams lanced out, striking their shields. The ship rocked under the assault. "Evasive maneuvers," Jackson ordered, his hands gripping the command chair. "Get us out of here." They plunged into the fray, weaving between enemy ships. Louis coordinated their newly arrived allies, directing them to key targets. Zorgon supply ships exploded in silent balls of fire. Orion loyalist vessels found themselves outflanked and overwhelmed. Days blurred into weeks as the rebellion gained momentum. Louis and his team led daring raids, striking at the heart of Zeph's operations. They hit supply depots, liberated prison camps, and sabotaged weapon factories. But the threat of the Council fleet loomed large. Lewis knew they couldn't avoid a confrontation forever. In the war room of their makeshift base, he unveiled his most audacious plan yet. "We use the wormhole network," he explained, pointing to a holographic map. "Lure Tarvok's fleet in, then spring the trap." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships darted in and out of wormholes, weapons fire lighting up the darkness of space. Lewis's coalition forces struck from impossible angles, confounding Tarvok's traditional tactics. In the midst of the chaos, Lewis and Jackson led a strike team onto Tarvok's flagship. They fought their way through corridors, dispatching guards with practiced efficiency. They burst onto the bridge, weapons raised. Tarvok whirled to face them, his expression a mix of fury and disbelief. "It's over, Admiral," Louis said, tossing a data chip onto the command console. "See for yourself. The truth about Zeph, the Zorgons, all of it." Tarvok's eyes widened as he reviewed the evidence. Outside, the battle raged on. But in that moment, the future of the cosmos hung on one man's decision. Finally, Tarvok lowered his head. "Stand down," he ordered his fleet. "All ships, cease fire." As the Council fleet withdrew, Lewis allowed himself a moment of relief. But he knew the fight was not nearly finished. Zeph was still out there, wounded but dangerous. "We've won the battle," Louis told his assembled allies. "Now it's time to end this war." Little did they know Zeph was preparing a final, desperate move that would put everything they'd fought for at risk. The stolen Orion warship's bridge buzzed with frantic activity. Lewis hunched over a holographic display, studying the layout of Zeph's stronghold. Jackson burst through the doors, his face ashen. "Louis, we've got a problem," Jackson said, his voice tight. "Our spies just sent word. Zeph's got his hands on some kind of Zorgon superweapon." Lewis's head snapped up. "What kind of superweapon?" Jackson pulled up a data file, projecting schematics into the air. "It's called a singularity generator, ancient tech, capable of creating an unstable black hole that could swallow entire star systems." "Shit," Lewis muttered, running a hand through his hair. "He's really gone off the deep end." The rebel leaders gathered around the tactical display. Lieutenant Chen pointed to a heavily fortified section of Zeph's base. "Intel suggests the weapon is here, deep underground." Lewis nodded grimly. "Then that's where we hit. All-out assault, no holding back." Hours later, the rebel fleet dropped out of hyperspace, guns blazing. Zeph's defensive screen lit up, energy beams crisscrossing the void. Louis's ship shuddered as it took a glancing hit. "Shields at 80%, Sergeant Hawkins shouted over the din of alarms. Lewis gripped the command chair. "Push through. All ships, concentrate fire on their main generators." The battle raged, a chaotic dance of explosions and debris. Despite their ferocity, the rebels found themselves outgunned. Lewis watched in dismay as friendly ships winked out of existence one by one. "We're not making a dent," Corporal Valdez reported, her voice strained. "Their defenses are too strong." Lewis's mind raced. They were running out of time. In a flash of inspiration, he turned to Jackson. "The maintenance tunnels, can we use them to get a team inside?" Jackson's eyes widened. "It's possible, but it would be a one-way trip. The radiation levels—" "I'll do it," Louis said, cutting him off. "Assemble a strike team. We're going in." Minutes later, Lewis led a small group through the winding tunnels beneath Zeph's fortress. The air crackled with energy, making their hair stand on end. They encountered sporadic resistance, dispatching Zorgon patrols with brutal efficiency. As they neared the central chamber, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Lewis's blood ran cold as he realized what it meant. "He's activated the device. Move!" They burst into the vast chamber housing the singularity generator. At its center, a swirling vortex of darkness grew, pulling in everything around it. Zeph stood at the controls, his eyes wild with madness. "You're too late," Zeph cackled. "The power of the cosmos is mine." Lewis raised his weapon, but Zeph was already fleeing through a side passage. The human commander raced to the control panel, his heart sinking as he saw the complexity of the alien technology. "Can you shut it down?" Sergeant Hawkins asked, desperation in his voice. Lewis shook his head. "No, but I can overload it. It'll take out the whole base, but it's the only way to stop that thing from growing." The implications hung heavy in the air. Louis turned to his team, his expression grave. "Get out of here. That's an order." Hawkins hesitated. "Sir, we can't just—" "Go!" Louis barked. "Someone has to make it out to tell the story." As his team retreated, Louis focused on the task at hand. His fingers flew over the alien controls, initializing the overload sequence. The chamber shook violently, chunks of ceiling crashing down around him. Louis fought his way through waves of Zorgon reinforcements, every step bringing him closer to the exit. But as the Singularity's pull grew stronger, he knew he wouldn't make it. With a final burst of effort, Louis triggered the electromagnetic pulse. A blinding flash engulfed him, and then nothing. Outside, the rebel forces watched in stunned silence as Zeph's stronghold imploded. The shockwave rippled outward, consuming the enemy fleet. Where once stood a formidable fortress, there was now only a haunting void. In the command ship, Jackson stared at the emptiness on the console, his voice barely a whisper. He did it. That crazy son of a bitch actually did it. The cost of victory caused great concern on them all. Louis Young, the human mercenary who had changed the course of galactic history, was gone.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.